So it's hard to start with this, how are you doing? Because nobody can answer. Everybody's on mute. So sorry about that. Teams phone system, I think the session name was, is that the correct solution for us? And since this conference is called Teams Nation, I guess you already realize that in the end I will say it is the correct solution for you, but maybe not for all users, and we will look into why it will not be the correct solution for all users. My name is Linus Cansby. I work at a company called Clarity in Sweden. We work a lot with helping customers build digital meetings and digital collaboration, and we're doing that for a long time. My background is in I've been working with Skype for Business and Link and Office Communicator and even Live Communicator. So I've been working in this area a long time and mainly focusing on meetings and telephony. So the parts that was Skype for Business before, and now of course it's a lot of Teams I work with. So it's not only the meeting parts. As you know, Teams is much more than meetings and calling. I do some blogging on my blog called link.se. You can log in there. It's even if it's called link.se, it's mostly about Teams. And I also have a podcast together with Morten Hellebro, and we talk in Swedish about Teams. It's called Teamspodden. If you want to contact me or follow me, you can contact me on Twitter, Cansby, or you can reach out to me in some other way, like LinkedIn. So to the topic, what is Teams phone system? So if you've been in the Office 365 portal, you may have seen that there is a license called Teams phone system. It's also included in the E5 license. And this Teams phone system, it's switchboard, or a PBX it's called. So that is the functionality that handles calls between your users and the PSTN network. And the PSTN network, I will probably say that word a couple of times. It's all the cables in the air, mostly in the ground now, that handles all the phone calls between cell phones and old phones like this, stationary desk phones. So the Teams phone system is that PBX. And to activate that, you need a license that you assign to your user, but you also need something connecting the PBX in Teams to the PSTN network. So you can use either your current carrier, or you can use Microsoft as your carrier. I will go into that soon. So basically, Teams phone system is a license that you assign to users. That seems quite easy, right? So I guess now you're planning just, okay, I will jump off this session and just buy that license and deploy it to all users. But I would say, hold on and wait, because maybe this is not the correct solution for all of your users. And I hope that you still have some questions and or just want to know more about this. So I will show you some more and what you think of when you implement the phone system in your team solution. But first, we recommend our customers that do some kind of inventory. Do an interview with different people in your organization. Talk to people working, if you have a call center. Talk to the HR department, how they work with telephony. Talk to marketing and different people in the organizations to see how they are working. And collect all this information. I'm not saying that you should transfer the same way of working from your old telephony system into Teams, but as a start, it's very good to know how your users are working today. You will probably find out that you have some call centers, And maybe you heard that there is no call center application in Teams, but that doesn't mean that you cannot use Teams as your phone system or telephony solution. During the inventory, you will probably see that you have some attendants or receptionist working in some way. We also have to handle these. Should we have them working in a regular Teams client, or should they have something else? Maybe you have some compliance requirements, so you're giving out financial advice. Then you have to record all your calls. You have to look into that solution, see what you're using today, and if you want to continue using the same solution. And maybe you have analog devices like fax machines and so on, door phones. That's something you have to bring into the project and discuss in the project what you want to do with them. And yeah, fax, you use that today. Let's look into how you can handle that. So let's start with the customer service. So if you have some call center today, handling your customers, taking calls from people outside, helping them with, it could be financial questions like, I got this invoice, why did I get that? Or you can have maybe an IT help desk, and they have some call center functionality. In Teams, we have something called call queues. Call queues is simply one number into the Teams phone system, and then you have multiple agents answering on that same number. We also have something called auto attendants. That's included in the license, you can use it. Auto attendants are that the external users, they call into the one phone number, and they got a IVR menu, so they can get an option. Press 1 for invoicing, press 2 for sales department, press 3 for marketing. In this auto attendant, you can also have automatic attendant, so people can dial in and say who they want to talk to, and this auto attendant tries to connect them to the correct user in your organization. A new thing in Teams is that if you have these call queues, you can attach a Teams channel to that call queue. So people can, or the agents in your organization answering the calls, they get a history list of all calls coming into this queue that they have answered or not answered. They have a list of if they left a voicemail. They also get some information about the other agents, so they can see if other agents been signed in or if they're offline. So now the agents can keep track of each other. So if they see that we have a lot of calls coming in and I'm the only one answering calls in this call queue, I can easily, since it's Teams, I can easily chat with my fellow agents and ask someone else to sign in, and I will see when they sign in. Unfortunately, this is not the best solution. So for example, currently the history is not shared between the agents, so I cannot see if my colleague answered questions here or answered calls here. But it's a good start. But maybe you want something more advanced. So one common solution when people are dialing into customer service is that they have to enter the customer number or some things that identify them. If they enter the customer number, so they will get some prioritization, so they will get first in line or something like that. And that's not possible in the built-in call queues. Then you need something else, like a third-party tool. This is an example from Tend4. So they create the call center application, attendant applications for Teams. So you connect this solution into Teams. That with that connection between Teams and this third-party call center, you use the phone system in the bottom as your PBX, and on top of that you add another layer, and that's the call center layer. And there you can do more advanced things like connecting to a CRM system. You can get more advanced IVR or connecting to the agents in a different way. So you get more features here. And there are a couple of different ways to connecting these third-party tools. And in the session after this one, Tom will talk more about this. And so if you're interested of this, I recommend you to listen into that session as well. But then you maybe have maybe have your IT department. They already work in a tool where they handle all the tickets. And maybe that tool can handle calls. So if you have a CRM system or incident management system or something like that, so maybe the best way is not to bring in the call into Teams. Maybe it should go directly into this solution. So you also have that option. So my recommendation when you look into the different call center solutions, look into what they are using today. Is it a CRM system that can handle the calls? Maybe the call should go in there, and those agents should work there instead of bringing the calls into Teams. Especially if bringing the calls into Teams will not benefit these agents anything. So then you should really look into the tool you have and if that can handle calls. And also nowadays, when we look into the third-party tools, the customers don't only contact customer service by dialing the number. They can maybe use their Teams client. They want to do a Teams call into a contact center. Maybe they want to use their phone and use WhatsApp or Messenger or in Facebook or something like that. So, and that the built-in functionality, the call queues that you have in Teams will not handle that. So if you have a call center or a customer service working with more channels, the omni-channel called, and then you have to use a third-party tool that can handle that. Then we have the analog devices. The analog devices are something that maybe is a legacy, like you might have a door phone, buzzing people in for that might be some analog device. There you have to look into what you have today in the different locations you have in the different office buildings. Can you replace it with something newer, SIP-based, or do you need a gateway to connect this into Teams? Maybe you can replace it with a door phone that is GSM connected or connect through the mobile network. So instead of having the call into a gateway and then into Teams, maybe the door phone can handle a mobile connection instead. We sometimes see elevator alarm phone connected into the phone system or the PBX. How do you want to handle that? And if you bring in that into Teams, you can do it with a gateway, but then you also have to consider what kind of backup system do I have since now the call will go through the network. What happens with the network switch that this system is connected to? Will it be if the power turns off? If you have a power outbreak, will that network switch still work? So same here. Look into, can you replace this solution with mobile connection maybe? And also there are in some countries and counties, there are some regulations about this, so you have to look into that as well. Then we also have the fax machine. That is a common thing that we see in the projects. Some use the fax machine, Some have some rules that they have to send legal documents by fax. Very strange, because fax is not that safe as they think. But how do you want to handle that? I would recommend not to take in the fax call into the team service or into your SIP trunk. I would recommend you to look into e-solutions. You can get the fax by email instead. There are many fax, this electronic fax service that can handle multifunctional copiers. So you can scan your document and send it to this electronic fax service. So if you still use that, look into the different solution. Try not to get it into Teams. Recording is something else we see. There are a couple of third-party tools that you can connect into Teams to do compliance recording. And compliance recording is something that you activate for some users. You say that these users, they have some regulatory requirements that they have to record all the calls. The most common thing is if you give financial advice, then you have to record your calls for those agents. There are a couple of different recording solutions that you can connect into Teams, and they will record all the calls automatic for those users. And then afterwards you can go in and search for those calls and listen to them again. But you also have the ability in Teams to record separate calls. So as you record meetings today, you can also record individual calls. But that have to be activated by the end users themselves. You cannot have it automatic recording. So in the call center, it's common that you record the last call. So if you have a attendant or that answer calls, they can, most of these third-party tools can record the last call, and then the attendant or agent have to select themselves if they want to save that call or not. So that's more if someone calls in and are violent or threatening, so then they can select to save that call. So, but that's not compliance recording. So you have different options. You have the compliance recording, you have the individual recording that the user starts themselves, and you might have recording in third-party call center applications. So connectivity. I said the phone system is a license you apply to your users, and then you have to connect it somehow to your carrier, or you can use Microsoft as your carrier. So Microsoft have something called calling plans. It's available in some countries, not in all countries. So you have to look into that list and see if it's available in your country. And if you buy that license, you will be able to port your existing number into Microsoft, and Microsoft will then become your carrier. Note that if you're porting number, that can take some time, a couple of weeks. So if you want to port your number into Teams tomorrow, that will probably not be possible. But then you can get new numbers. So you can go into your Office Admin Center and buy a license, a calling plan license. You have two options. One that includes calling minutes local in your country, or one license that includes local calling in your country and international calling. And there are about 1,800 minutes included in that license. And that is pretty fast. Within a day, you usually have a number from Microsoft. if calling plans is available in your country. But you maybe have some other requirements. You have a existing carrier that doesn't support Teams, or maybe have a existing PBX and you want to split the calls, so half the users should use Teams calling and half the users should be on the old PBX. Then you can set up direct routing with an SBC. So then you put a gateway between your existing carrier and Teams, and that handles all the calls. You can also buy this direct routing directly from a carrier. Then you don't need any equipment yourself. It's often called super trunk or SBC as a service. So then your carrier will provide you with your numbers into Teams, and you have to set those numbers to your users. But you don't need any equipment yourself. And then we also have something called Operator Connect. That's a new thing coming. And here you can go into your Teams admin center and have a connection to your carrier there. You can order numbers or assign numbers directly from the Teams admin center. So it's a more integrated way, since you have all the administration for your numbers inside Teams admin center. So there is a question here about how I see the difference between Operator Connect and SuperTrunk. So the SuperTrunk, there you don't have any, or you don't have any administration in Teams admin center, and so you cannot connect to your carrier and get numbers from Teams admin center. You have to contact your carrier from another way. Maybe they have a portal you can request number from. And as you see in this picture, the Operator Connect is only available from a few carriers. Direct Connect or the SuperTrunk you can get from more carriers. And then you have the direct routing that you can get from mostly all carriers, because then you set up your own SBC in either on premises or in Azure. But of course you can mix as you want. So maybe for one country you use the calling plans, for another country you use Operator Connect, and for the third country you use an SBC with direct routing. So you can mix this how you want to. And I see a lot of customers that wants to use one carrier for all their locations. So maybe if you have a presence in 20 countries, you maybe have 20 different carriers today. And then many customers think that they will get a better price if they use only one carrier. Usually that is not the case. And also if you continue using local carriers, you often get better support. They know the local regulations better than a carrier that operates worldwide. And many of these carriers that operates worldwide have that can provide numbers in all countries. They use these local carriers as subcontractors. So they buy the number from the local carrier that you also can buy directly from. But also, if you use one carrier worldwide, it's easier. It will probably be one invoice, one way of contacting them, and so that's something you have to look into. What's easiest for you? Phones or desk phones. We usually recommend that you try to replace your desk phone with a soft phone, and the soft phone is the Teams client, and to that you connect a headset so you get a good quality sound. But some I know some countries that have local regulations that you still have to, for emergency calling, you need a desk phone somewhere in the office or in a factory. So for some locations, you will probably end up with some desk phones. There are desk phones like this, J-Link desk phone. It's certified for Teams, and that can connect directly to Teams. You can manage it from Teams Admin Center. You can, from Teams Admin Center, you can do some configuration, collect logs, and assign it to user and so on. So these are working very good with Teams. But then you also have some old, so maybe you have something, maybe you are coming from a Skype for Business solution and you have something like this, an old Polycom device that you want to connect to Teams. And you can connect them today, and they will connect to Skype for Business online. As you know, Skype for Business online will be ended by probably 1-2 months here in the middle of December. But Microsoft is also working on a SIP gateway, and this SIP gateway will allow you to connect old phones like Polycom phones, J-Link audio codes, and Cisco phones. And maybe Cisco phones is the most interesting, because if you have an investment in a Cisco platform with a lot of phones in different locations, and you have users that really want to keep their desk phone, allow them to keep their desk phone, that is a Cisco one, and connect it directly to this SIP gateway. You will be able to manage the phone from Teams Admin Center and do some basic calling from it. But you don't need any extra investment like you need for if you buy a Teams phone. If you have something, maybe you have an old one. The SIP gateway, there's a question about ETA of this. I don't have any public date, but since it will replace the Skype for Business Online, and Skype for Business Online will end by June 30, so I guess it will be prior to that. They are testing it in the TAP program, so hopefully soon it will be available. So if you have some really old equipment, like I mentioned door phones and elevator alarm phones, so maybe that's an analog device. Maybe you have something old like this. Wonder if anyone recognizes this connection. Maybe you have to replace this connection, but then you can connect a analog gateway. You connect your phones to this analog gateway, and then you connect the analog gateway to the SBC. And if you don't have an own SBC, you have maybe this super trunk or SBC as a service with your carrier, you will probably not be able to connect this analog gateway or the ATA directly to that SBC. So then you will need your own SBC. But that SBC could be set up in Azure if you want to. So that's no issue. So what does this cost to implement the phone system? You need a license. So you need a phone system license. There you will get some functionality. But to be able to do the emergency calling, assign a phone number, and inbound and outbound calling, you also need this calling plan. You can select the domestic or international. If you connect directly to an existing carrier with the direct routing, you don't need the calling plan. Then you only need the phone system. And the phone system together with the audio conferencing is included in the E5. If you compare adding just yeah, correct. You can use phone system to Microsoft 365 Business Premium as well. That's correct. If you look into or comparing your maybe E3 and adding a phone system and compare that to buying an E5, you will see that the E5 is much more expensive. But if you talk to other departments, maybe your cybersecurity department or some work with compliance or somebody with your exchange team, and you add the different features that they need, the E5 license might be the cheaper solution for you. Will emergency calling features work with direct routing? Yes, they will. There are some different setups you have to do with emergency calling, and we have different regulation in different countries. So for example, in United States, you have to send your location together with the emergency call. In Germany, you set the location based on the phone number. So there you don't set the location based on where the user is located right now. And in Teams, you have these features, so you can set, you can connect like in a database. You can say that this Wi-Fi access point or this IP subnet is this location, and connect that to an address. And that information could be included in the emergency call. And when it comes to emergency calling in Teams, you also have the feature that if someone dials an emergency call, that could be escalated to a conference call, so you can include somebody else. So if someone is calling 112 in Europe or 911, you can include a third party into the call. So maybe a receptionist or somebody else that needs to know that somebody called an emergency call. They can also get a chat message that this person called emergency call. Just a side note there. So is Teams calling for all users? I would say no. Probably you will have some users that just want to use their cell phone. Then that's probably the correct solution for them. If they don't ever sit by a computer or just is out running, it's not worth adding the license cost to those users. Even if you have the Teams mobile client that is really good, you can use that to answer calls, and if you don't want to use your cell phone for that. Maybe you have a receptionist or attendant that needs some other solution. You have some call center or that needs some other solution. Maybe the IT department need take their calls into the incident system you have, or a ticketing system. And you might have some call users that really don't want to use the computer to take the calls, handle them separately. You don't have to force them to use Teams telephony. And you will always find some other cases. But for the majority of the users in your organization, Teams telephony will work. It will work really good just for outbound, inbound calls. You have some advanced features that the user can set up their own call groups. They can route calls to voicemail. The voicemail can be based on the out of office rule you have in your Exchange mailbox. So Teams phone system will be a very competent system that handles maybe 90-95% of your users. So the next step for you, look into what you have today. Maybe you can get help from some Microsoft partner, and they can help you filling out the information about your current solution. And then that's a good start to have when you start up the project to implement Teams telephony. Gather stakeholders in your business and set up a workshop about Teams phone system. Maybe you can set up a demo. Getting started with calling plans is really easy. So you can add a couple of phone system licenses and assign them to some key users that want to test it and see if it will work. Another option is to set up a demo tenant and test it there. And then build your deployment plan. How do you want to deploy this? Do you want to do a site-by-site deployment, or maybe a side-by-side? So a side-by-side would be that some calls go into your existing PBX and some other calls go into Teams phone system. And that, how you do that will affect the setup, how the architecture of your setup. And then deliver the plan. And when you deliver the plan, don't forget to educate your users. Since you will spend a lot of money on this phone system with license and so on, also spend some money on educating users. Build up a digital champion network if you don't have that, and let them teach the users. So you have calling out, calling in from Teams is quite easy, but if you want to use more advanced functions, that's not always easy to find for users. And the workshop, that's it. So you think you will be ready for this? So yeah, I really think you are. So the next step for you would be to schedule a workshop.
We have just one more question here posted.
Yeah. I'll take that soon.
Can you see it? Would you like me to read it?
Yeah, I see the question.
Okay.
The next step for you is probably to schedule a workshop. Contact some your Microsoft partner. Microsoft have ready workshops that they can, together with a partner, deploy for you. And so if you gather your stakeholders, and they can, your Microsoft partner can have a workshop. And the beauty of this is that Microsoft pays for this. So you don't have to pay for the workshop. They can assist you there. So contact me or your partner and they will help you. Let's see. There are a couple of questions here. Outgoing Teams call for a Teams queue with queue numbers. Possible in the near future? I think so. I don't think that's public, so I have to say I think so. But yeah, I think that will come soon, so that agents can use the call queue number instead. There is a way to do it today with caller ID. So you set a caller ID policy and assign that to a user. The problem with that is that they will use that caller ID all the times when they dial out. But if you tested, you can also delegate. So one user can delegate access to their number to another user, and that user can dial out as another user. So, and I think that will come to the call queues as well. And one side note, the caller ID there, when you set the caller ID policy, previously it was only possible to set the number that you got from Microsoft, but now it's also possible to set direct routing numbers. in that policy. So if you tested it a couple of weeks ago and used direct routing, that was not possible, then you can try it again. Let's see, next question. When I assigned the phone system license, my user was not enterprise voice enabled. After assigning calling plan, he was. My call queue agent was not able to receive phone calls without a calling plan license. Is that correct? They will need enterprise voice enabled, and that's enabled with the calling plan. And you will need phone system license, but I don't think you need a calling plan license to receive calls. That I don't know actually, since you can receive calls if you have direct routing, but still you need a phone number. So some way you need a phone number assigned to the user. So you can use calling plans or direct routing, if I understood the question correct there. Another question about the call queue within a Teams channel. Will Microsoft improve the feature and add more functionality? For example, display how many people are waiting in the queue. Yes, they will add more features. I hope that they will add that feature. So like a wall display or some information, how many calls you answered today and how many are waiting and so on. I don't know if it will come. I guess it will come, but I don't know when. Outgoing calls for a Teams queue with a queue's number. It may be configured with a caller policy and service number. Yes, and since very recent, it can also be added with you can assign a direct routing number there as well. Might be that you need a newer PowerShell module for Teams for that to be implemented or to use that setting. We do like this. I will just finish this so I can continue answering questions. So this is me. If you want to contact me, you contact me on LinkedIn or Twitter. You will find me there. And here is the information about rating the session and so on. I will continue with the questions if you want to stay. If not, thanks for listening.